I'm going over a few Excel tricks, and you might want to pause the video and try these on your own as I go along. So the first trick is autofill. And to autofill in Excel, I've got a block of data here, and I start a pattern in the column next to the data. And I highlight my pattern, and I click the little right-hand box, and I double-click that box, and it automatically fills to the end of the column. So my next thing I want you to understand in Excel is formulas. How do you deal with formulas in Excel? Any formula always starts by going into a cell and typing equals, and I can type a regular formula like 5 plus 5, or I can type a formula that has a reference point. So I'm doing 5 plus 5 plus I just clicked on the cell next to it. So it's adding 10 to the 714. And what that means is if I copy this cell and paste it in the cell below it, it automatically adds 10 to the cell next to it. So that the references are always, they always preserve the relationship to the cell next to it. And of course I can grab this data and double click in this little right hand box to get that formula to fill down to the end of the column. So that's how you deal with formulas in Excel. The next thing you might want to do is change the formatting. For example, let's say I want this column of data, but I don't want the formulas. I just want the data. So I might copy this column, which I can do Control C, or I'm doing it manually through the mouse. And I'm pasting the data over here. If I paste the data directly, I've got 10 because it's 10 plus this cell, which is not what I wanted. So instead, I copy this column and I paste it over here, special. And I paste special saying I only want the values, not the formulas. So I hit OK. And these two columns look the same, but they're not exactly the same. This column has formulas. If you look in this bar up here, it says what is in this cell, and we can see this cell has 5 plus 5 plus the referential cell over here. Whereas if we look at what this one is saying, it's just 724. So that can be really useful in working with data. Control down is just something to keep in mind. If you want to get to the bottom of a data set, you just hit Control down and it'll take you all the way to the bottom. This just helps you get around a data set really quickly. And I've already shown you pasting data, but sometimes you want to paste it for a purpose, which might be sorting data. So let's say I have this column here and I want to line it up in order. I can highlight the column, and sometimes on the home screen you can find sort. I'm on a Mac right now, so I have to come over to data. In the data section here, I've got a sort key, and I can just hit this and it'll automatically sort the data from largest to smallest. Or if I wanted smallest to largest, I could also do ascending, and it would go the other way around. So those are several useful tricks in Excel. All right, another thing you might want to do in the data set is work with graphs. So to do that, I want to teach you how to create a graph, how to adjust data in a graph, and how to adjust the axes. So I'm going to use a different tab, and the tabs are at the bottom. So this is the same Excel file, but you've got a GDP tab here, and sheet 3 has some data on hospitals and what percentage of surgery are minimally invasive. So here we have some data, and we'd like to make a graphic with it. So the first thing I always do is just highlight all of the data I want to make a graphic with. I'll do charts at the top, and some versions of Word have different ones. Sometimes you'll have to do insert and graph, but you'll always be able to find the same options. And the most useful one I've found is the scatter graph. And we've got years here, so let's say I want to show the trends over time. I can click on that, and it automatically generates a graph. But the graph isn't usually exactly what you want. For example, let's say I notice this graph has all hospitals, and the all hospitals is really just the average of the rest of them. So I don't really want that data point. I'd like to get rid of the blue line, which is hiding behind the. So what I can do is I can right click, and then I can select data. And it brings up this box that has that has the way Excel is organizing my data. So I can see that I've got 4 series here, all high private, medium private, and low private. And I want to get rid of the all, so I click that to remove. The other thing I can do is I can look at high private, and I can actually look at what are the Xhand values. And I see the Xhand values are 2004 through 2011. I can look at the Y values. What are the values on the Y-axis? And I can see those are in this column here. So I can play around with these if I want to. That's how you get into adjusting graphs. So what else do we want to learn? The final thing I want to show you is how do you adjust axes. So let's say I don't like the fact that there's a bunch of white space down here, and I'd like my graph to start at 0.2 or 20%. I can I can left click on the graph once so that this region is highlighted, and then right click on it and do Format Axis. And up here I have options. What is the minimum? It's 0, and the maximum is 0.8. Well, I don't want it to start at 0, I want it to start at 0.2. So I made that adjustment, and you can see it got rid of the white space and kind of zoomed in on my graph, and then I hit OK. And that's basically how you deal with graphs in Excel.